Welcome to yoga. This is Yoga with Joyful. This is Joyful. Yes. If this is your first time joining me, this practice is for anybody. You don't need to have previous yoga experience to do this practice. If I invite you to do anything that your body doesn't feel right about doing, please don't do it. Please be responsible about your own needs and your own, what feels good to you. My name is Robin Bruckman. I've been teaching yoga for about 20 years. So we're going to work for about 45 minutes. Today you're going to need, I have a foam pad that I'm sitting on. You'll need either a foam pad or a folded up towel will work great because we're going to do a bunch of kneeling today and your knees will be a lot happier if you're on something. So wait just a minute or so. Yeah, if that means that you have time to go get a towel, please go do that. I'll wait for you to come back. And then when you're ready, find a comfortable seated position, whatever that means for you. I'm sitting in Sukhasana or easy pose. Sukha means comfortable, so this would be the name of this pose is comfortable. If it's not comfortable for you, you could sit on your heels, you could sit in a chair, whatever is comfortable for you. Find that pose that you can stay in for a couple of minutes. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Begin to focus on your breathing, allowing your belly to be soft. Hips are open, thighs are heavy, shoulders are relaxed. Just thank yourself for allowing you to have this time that you've set aside for yourself. Our goal today, as every day, is that we feel better when we get up off our mat than we did coming down to the mat. Allow your breath to be soft and deep and filling your belly with the inhale. Allowing your belly to contract with the exhale. Breath is soft. Now open your eyes, interlace your fingers, palms away, arms overhead, and gently stretching from side to side, looking under the opposite arm, gently opening the side body, beginning to open that opposite side hip. Just allowing that nice gentle opening to happen. Giving more room in your rib cage for a deeper breath. And release your hands, interlace your fingers behind you. Shoulder blades together in the back, collarbones long, hands away from the back body, looking up. So here's our first back bend. We're going to be looking at gentle back bends today and hip openers for hip health. Looking up, opening the heart center, chin pushes away, opening the throat. Release the hands, right hand down, left arm up overhead, opening that left side body, allowing that left hip to open. You can take weight on that right hand or not as you wish. Looking up underneath that left arm, just allowing that opening, feeling that opening on that outer left hip, outer left shoulder, left rib cage, and press up, left hand down, right arm up, overhead, grounding that right seat bone, beginning to open that right hip, right rib cage, right shoulder, letting that right thigh be super heavy. And come back up to center. Place your hands in front of you and walk your hands out any amount. And again, this is an opening for the outer hip. And if this is too much opening, you can keep your hands here, that's fine. This is your practice. So you go to where you find some opening. There's no need to push at anything in this practice. You just want to go to where you find a comfortable opening, because we're going to hang out in poses for a while, for many breaths. So if you're straining, if your breath gets constrained, back up. And now that we've been in it for several breaths, maybe you could walk your hands out a little bit more, and maybe not, and that's fine too. This is your practice. And now walk your hands over to the right a little bit, noticing that that becomes a hip opener for that outer left hip, yes? Isn't that interesting? Such a simple movement. Now walking the hands back to the center, noticing if anything has changed. So I'm noticing that I have a little bit more freedom to fold. Now walk your hands over to the left, noticing that one side is always easier than the other. This side is tighter for me. So gaze is a little bit forward. And that helps allow even more opening on that right outer hip, right rib cage, maybe the right shoulder. And then walk back to the center and notice if anything has changed. So I'm considerably farther forward now than I was at the beginning of the practice. And I'm not pushing. There's no need to push. And then walk your hands back, come to sit up, and notice how your sitting feels now. See if there's any more openness now just in your sitting. Now left hand to the right knee, right hand behind you as a kickstand, trying not to smash the cat. Gaze is upward now, so this is a little bit towards a back bend. And it's still a hip opener for that left outer hip. Did you notice that? So the twist originates in your pelvis, comes up through the rib cage, into the upper chest, and completes before you get to the neck. The neck is not included in a twist. And the reason for that is that once your head is turned, your body says, okay, twist is complete. If your head is not within the twist, if your neck is not included in the twist, your body may feel like there's more twist available in the lumbar spine, in the thoracic spine. And again, no pushing. There's no need to push. Neck should feel free. Inhale, come back to center. Right hand to the left knee, left hand behind you. Turning to the left, leaving your head out of the twist. come back to center and notice how your sitting feels. These are very simple movements. And yet, I mean, I feel better and nothing has been real exotic. I'm not going to take any picture of this. Yoga Journal's not here. You're not on display. This is just about feeling more comfortable within our own bodies. Okay, so now we're going to come to hands and knees. So here's where you want to have a towel maybe under your knees. And again, I have a foam pad. I'm going to move it back a little bit on my mat. Father the cat. So hands directly under the shoulders. Knees are under the hips, so a little bit separated. So here's table pose. And now we're going to play a little bit with some variations on cat and cow. So cow pose, look up, drop the belly, arching the back so the belly button comes down. And the action is of pulling your hands towards you. They don't actually move on the mat, but that action helps to seat your shoulder blades onto your back. And then exhale, push your hands away, arching, rounding the back up, angry cat spine. Looking at your belly button. Then inhale to cow, looking up, belly drops, back is arched. Exhale to cat, angry cat spine. Not this cat, she's not angry. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, neutral spine. Okay, so that's sort of a traditional cat and cow sequence. And because of our focus today, we're going to be looking at some more back bends. And notice that we already did a back bend. So cow is a back bend, all right? So we're not going to be doing giant back bends. We're not doing full wheel or upward facing bow. But we are going to be looking at some simple back bends. So we're also looking at some hip openers. So here comes a hip opener. So making sure that your knees are really stable. Take your weight over onto your left knee. Lift the right leg out to the side. And you're going to look at that knee. And what happens with this is your left hip has to really stabilize. And your right hip has to lift the weight of that thigh. Okay, so you're engaging the gluteus medius on both legs in a different way. So your gaze is towards that lifted knee. And notice that as we stay here, these are weak muscles. They're really important postural muscles, your gluteus medius, but they're pretty weak. So these are stabilizers on your outer hip. All right, return that leg down, wiggle around a little bit. Weight goes into the right knee, lifting that right leg, the left leg up, looking at that left knee. Noticing how one side is different than the other. And let that leg come down, wiggle around a little bit. So my guess is you're feeling that in both hips. I certainly am. So that's a little beginning to our hip sequence. So in order to stay on the camera, I'm going to move my pad back a little bit. And we're going to look at some more hip openers and also begin to back bend. So I'm walking my hands out farther forward. And I'm going to let my pelvis come down to the mat. And I'm going to come to my elbows. So this would be a variation on Sphinx pose. And you place your elbows wherever you need them to be in order to be able to let your pelvis come down. Tailbone points down towards your feet, okay, and that protects your low back. So in Sphinx pose, it's clearly a back bend, but it's a pretty subtle hip opener because you're already starting to open your psoas. Hi. Your psoas is a very important postural muscle, and in people who sit in furniture, and that would be us, it tends to shorten. The psoas originates up, it's sort of inside the rib cage, on the front of the spine, comes through the diaphragm, crosses the hip joint, for the front of the hip joint, and inserts on the inside of the femur or thigh bone. When that muscle is tight or shortened, it tends to pull the front of the pelvis down. And what that does is it makes your lower back have to work too hard to get you into an upright position. So if we can stretch the psoas, we can allow the low back to be more comfortable. So this is a very simple, it's a back bend. In other words, I'm looking forward, my upper thoracic spine is opening. I have my heart open to the front, but I'm also giving a beginning opening to the psoas. All right, now pushing back into child's pose. As a resting pose, balasana. And now we come forward into Sphinx pose again. And the action with your arms is a pulling your elbows towards your waist, and that helps increase the back bend component and also the psoas opening. This is not the very best psoas opener. We're going to do some other psoas openers. This is a starter psoas opener. So belly button pulled towards your spine. Elbows are pulling towards your waist. Tailbone is pushing down towards your feet. Breath is easy. And then lift up, press back to child's pose, balasana. And then press up to stand on your knees. Hands go down your back pocket. So this is camel pose, Ustrasana. And I'm just using camel pose right now as a way for you to see your starting posture, okay? So just notice how you feel in Ustrasana, in camel pose right now. Because we're going to change some stuff and it may feel different in a bit. So as I'm coming to stand on my knees, I notice that the front of my thighs are tight. So we're going to look at releasing the front of the thigh, which is the quadricep. The quadricep is the outer muscle of the front of your thigh. And so we need to get that released before we can actually get deep into the psoas. So we're using camel pose right now just to sort of take attendance, to notice our starting position. So from here, take that right leg forward so that right knee stands straight up. Okay, and notice that that starts to really open the quadricep on the left thigh, the standing thigh. This leg is just using as a stabilizer. This leg helps stabilize the pelvis so the pelvis doesn't tip forward due to any tightness in that thigh or in the psoas. So we're just going to hang here for a little bit. So nice breaths. Just finding your balance. And notice that camel also is a little bit of a back bend, okay? There's this heart opening component to camel. I promise we're not going to do giant back bends today. We're doing little bitty back bends. But you want to notice the back bend component to a lot of the poses that we're going to play with today. Okay, so now walking that front leg forward so that the back thigh and hip, the back pelvis comes a little bit more open. And you can have your hands wherever you want to for balance. All right, if you can come up here, that's great. If you want your hands on the mat, that's great. But notice that here we are getting into the psoas. Okay, so you may feel a deeper opening now. And that would be your psoas. So your psoas originates on the front of the spine, about the level of your navel, comes through the diaphragm, crosses the hip joint, and inserts on the inside of the femur or thigh bone. And it's a long, skinny guy, and it's really important for posture. And it's a stabilizer, and it really wants to work for you. And when it gets super strong, it also gets super short and tight. So this pose in particular really helps to open the psoas, to lengthen the psoas, and allow the pelvis to find a more neutral position. And now notice that this is also a back bend. Even though I'm leaning forward and I have my elbow on my knee, there's still a heart opening component to this. All right, so now I'm going to straighten that front leg any amount. And again, you can have your hands wherever you like. So now this is a hamstring opener. You probably noticed that. So the back of the thigh, the back of the front thigh starts to open. If the hamstrings are tight, that can also lead to back pain. We don't like back pain. So we want to have a lot of ways to help ourselves feel better. And these two sequences of a lunge with the back thigh standing up, a lunge with the back thigh starting to straighten a little bit, and this one where the front leg straightens a little bit, those three poses help back health, hip health and back health. All right, release the tension, come back to stand on your knees. So here we are back in camel pose. And notice if anything is different, other than we're not symmetrical because we only stretched one side. But see if there's any more ease in your camel pose. Notice again, there is a back bend component to this. Camel can be done as a complete back bend, okay? So letting the head fall back and having your hands on your heels. I'm not inviting you to go quite that deep today. It's not that important to what were my goals for today. Okay, so let that left leg come forward so the right thigh is standing straight up. So again, here we are opening the quadricep on that standing thigh, in this case, the right thigh. And notice that one side is different than the other. So for me, this quadricep isn't quite as tight as the other one, so this is easier for me. And there's no need to make it super hard. You're going to get plenty of release without pushing. Don't push. Pushing leads to strain, and that leads to injury. We don't like injury. We hate injury. We like using loving kindness to our own selves. All right, so now walk that front leg forward without stepping on the cat's tail. And opening that right hip forward as much as it wants to. So you should feel something. You don't need to say, oh my gosh, if your eyes are popping out of your head, back up, okay? That's not the goal here. You should be able to stay here, breathe normally, speak normally. You want to feel like something's happening, but not horrible things, just an interesting amount of stretch, that's all. That's plenty. And then begin to straighten that front leg any amount, and you get to pick how much your hamstring is interested in stretching today. And again, there's no prize for this. Okay, you just want to find an interesting amount of stretch. You want to say, how about that? I feel like I'm doing something. If your breath gets catchy or your eyes pop out of your head, back up. And now bring that knee back down. Find camel pose again, Ustrasana. Hands down your back pockets and just notice how it feels, okay? So we've done a lot of exploration around the hips. And nothing's really strainy, nothing's really horrible. Just enough to start opening the hip a little bit. All right, now we come back to hands and knees. It's always helpful to have a cat rearranging your mat for you. And now we're going to open the leg out to the side, so the right leg out to the side, but this time the leg is straight. So straight back and then straight out to the side. Now, I'll just mention that suddenly your leg is a lot heavier, okay, because you've changed the leverage on the hip joint. And now that right leg goes straight back, and you're going to bend the knee so the foot is pointing up towards the ceiling, and then lift that leg as much as it's interested in lifting. Now, this strengthens the gluteus maximus on the right side. The gluteus medius is still working on the left side, and you're also getting some psoas. Now, there's also back bend in here. Did you notice some heart opening happening? And then let that knee come down, rest in child's pose, Balasana. And come back to table pose. Left leg straight out behind you, and then out to the side. Notice that your leg is super heavy now, and one side is always easier. That means one side is always harder. Still a back bend component here. Now let that leg back, bend the knee so the foot is pointing towards the ceiling. So this is a little bit more back bendy. And then lift that leg any amount. So that's back bend and a little psoas and a lot of glute medius on that right side. Some glute max on the left side. Let that knee come down, rest in child's pose. And then come back to table. So now we're going to play a little bit of movement. Somebody put cat food underneath my mat. Who would do such a thing? Would you do that? You would? Okay, so here's the movement that we're going to do. So I have my hands a little bit farther forward, and we're going to be moving from table into the direction of a grounded upward dog, and then back in the direction of child's pose. So moving up and back, allowing the shoulder blades to be pulled together. Noticing that as we come forward into this modified up dog, there's back bend and there's psoas opening. So we've got hip and back bend happening. Come back to table, hands underneath your shoulders, and just wiggle around and notice how you feel. Now come back to Sukhasana, and I'm going to move my mat farther forward for this. Move my pad farther forward. We're going to go into pigeon. And I don't have a block handy. I'm not assuming that you have a block handy. We're going to do pigeon without a block right now. Okay, and in order to do pigeon without a block, you're going to have to keep your hands supporting your weight. So we're only going to do the back bend component of pigeon. Now pigeon is a really big hip opener. It's great for riders because it opens the outer hip, it opens the psoas. It's a back bend, it's a heart opener, it's a really amazing pose. Okay, so from Sukhasana, I'm going to lean over to the left side and push my right leg out behind me as straight as I can. Come up onto my hands. Okay, so I'm up, I'm supporting my weight on my hands. I do not want to put that pelvis back on the floor because I want my pelvis to be level. So when you're doing this without a block, if I had a block, I'd put it underneath that pelvis. But without a block, I'm going to support my weight on my hands, noticing that this is a big hip opener for the front of the right thigh. It's a hip opener for the outside of the left thigh, and it's a back bend. So shoulder blades coming down the back, gaze is up and forward. Breath stays easy, feeling like you're pulling your belly button up towards your spine. It's a very strong hip opener in a different way for each hip. Super, super pose for riders. Now to come out, let that left pelvis come down, lean to the left, swing that right leg around and forward. Both knees stand up and wiggle your knees around. And you can just rest forward. And then come back to cross-legged position. This time the right knee is going to stay where it is. Leaning over to the right, left leg comes straight back out, standing up on your hands. Noticing that one side is always easier. So there's a back bend component, so you're pulling your hands towards you, shoulder blades together down your back, feeling the opening on that outer right hip and the front of the left hip. Breath is easy, just allowing the opening to happen in its own time. Isn't that interesting? And to come out, lean over to the right, let the pelvis come down, swing that left leg around forward, stand both knees up, wiggle around a little bit, and notice how you feel. Should feel like your hips have done something. Okay, so now I'm going to move the pad, my little kneeling pad, out of the way, and you're going to come to your back body. Knees are hip width apart and bent. Pull each shoulder blade underneath your body. Palms face up. We're going to go into bridge pose. So for bridge pose, just press your feet, lift the pelvis up. Noticing that this is also a back bend. It's a strengthener for the glute max and could be possibly an opening for the psoas, but that's not a major component of this pose. So now we're going to lift up and press back down, not all the way to the mat, and then press up again. Very slowly, noticing you want to ask both legs to work equally. One wants to take over. Now this time, let the pelvis come all the way down to the mat. Bring your knees to your chest. Hug your knees, and you can rock side to side. Should feel pretty good, huh? Now let your feet find the mat again. Feet are close together this time. Take your left ankle to your right knee. Let that left knee fall out to the side. Lift that right leg up and grasp that right thigh either behind the thigh or in front of the shin. Feet are flexed to protect your knee, and you can rock from side to side. Eye of the needle, Sukrandasana. Notice that this is a big hip opener too. Release your hands. Let both feet come down to the mat. Wiggle your knees around. And then take that right ankle onto your left knee. Let that right knee fall to the side. Lifting up that left leg. Wrapping your hands around either the thigh, the back of the thigh, or the front of the shin, whatever's comfortable for you. And you can rock from side to side. Release the thigh, let both feet come down to the mat, and this time your feet are wide apart, okay? So mat width apart, hands out to the side, palms face down. Let both knees fall to the right, looking to the left. Noticing that that's a big release for the outer left hip, possibly the inner right thigh, sorry. Inhale the knees up. Exhale, knees fall to the left, gaze is to the right. Right shoulder stays grounded. Opening for the outer right hip, possibly the inner left thigh. Inhale the knees up. Exhale, let the knees fall to the right again, looking to the left. Inhale up. Exhale, knees fall to the left, looking to the right, grounding that right shoulder. Inhale the knees up. So we're going to set up a little differently for Shavasana today. So your feet are already mat width apart. That's where they want to be. Now you're going to leave your feet there and let your knees fall towards each other so your thighs support each other. And that should allow your thighs to be completely relaxed in this position. Pull each shoulder blade underneath your body so your palms face up. So get yourself settled there. I'm going to sit up. You stay there. Allow your breath to soften. Feel completely supported by the mat, by the floor, by the earth. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Allow your facial features to be soft. Your brain rests in the back of the skull. Eyes are heavy in the bottom of the socket. Breath is easy. Tongue is relaxed. Jaw slightly parted. Back of the neck is long and free. Throat is open. Feel your shoulder blades flat on the mat. Collarbones long. Arms are heavy. Fingers slightly curled. Feel your ribs moving on the floor with your breath. The sternum rises and falls with the breath. Belly is soft. Allow your organs to rest towards your back body. Lower back is wide and soft. Feel your sacrum flat on the floor. Allow the weight of your thighs to rest into the hip socket to permit your thighs to relax even more. Feel the grounding of your feet on the mat. And return to the sensation of the breath. Your belly rises with the inhale. It falls with the exhale. Allowing yourself to notice any changes in your body as a result of your practice today. Any areas of warmth or softness or freedom. begin to take deeper breaths. Wiggle your fingers. Wiggle your knees from side to side. And then roll to your right side and rest there. And with the strength of your arms, press yourself up to seated. Bring your hands to heart center. Bow your head to your heart. I honor the place within you where the entire universe exists. I honor the place within you of peace, of joy, of light, and of love. I honor the place within you where, if you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, there can be only one of us. Namaste. Rub your palms together to generate warmth. Place your palms over your closed eyes. Open your eyes into the darkness and return your hands to heart center. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. Remember to drink a lot of water today to help flush anything out of your body that might have gotten loosened. I'm so glad that you were able to join me today, and I hope that that was helpful and useful to you. Thank you so much.